fine,
Is
fine.
invitation?
Perfect.
Is it
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. It is
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, so thank you again for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and try to share my experience and my vision. I think I can talk from different sides, from the university side, from the academic side, but also from a state agency leading with water and climate challenges, and it's quite a lot. So I'll try to have to give you an overview of what's going on in Brazil with related to water management policy and our job system, also from the university side. And okay, let's start.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting with our global agenda, which is well known from everybody. And we are, of course, mainly focused on the SDG 6, and but also with SDG 13. But in fact, they are all related. And we may, let's say, we have a biosphere layer, a society layer, an economy, and they are all linked with the SDG 17. So I think this is our main inspiration to young people, to everybody. It's our global agenda. And I would also to bring some attention to remind you about our water security aim. It's our main aim related to SDG 6, and we are talking about four main dimensions. It's related to drinking water and human well-being, ecosystems, with water-related hazard and climate change, and also economic activities and development. And it's all linked, and with good governance, peace and political stability, financing, and transboundary cooperation. Okay, so let's, I'll bring you somehow to Brazil and to the place I am at the moment. I'm in Pernambuco state. It's in the northeast of Brazil, in the capital city, Recife. And those are some pictures. This is in the central area. We are in the coast. So we have a main challenge related to this in terms of water resources management and also climate change, of course. So Recife is crossed by two main rivers, and we have the sea. We are just close to the sea. And this other photo is from the main campus. It's of the main campus of UFPE, my university, the Federal University of Pernambuco. And this is in Recife, but the Federal University of Pernambuco has other two campuses. And one of the other campuses is in Caruaru City, which is around 130 kilometers from Recife. And we have a completely different landscape and also water resource security. So this is Pernambuco state. And we have uneven distribution of water. We have uneven conditions of climate, weather. And we face a lot of challenges related to scarcity and floods and coastal challenges. So this is something that inspires me to work in this area, in the water resources management area, in the climate area. So just an overview about Brazil. We are a federative republic with a continental area, more than 200 million inhabitants. We are 26 states and plus a federal district, more than 5,500 municipalities, and 5 geopolitical regions. I'm based in the Northeast, but of course I'll try to talk a bit about the whole country. It's difficult, but let's see. Okay, so in terms of water yield, we have about 12% of the freshwater availability in the world is the largest. If we account for Brazilian upstream countries, we have around 18% of the freshwater availability in the world. But if you look at this map, you can note the uneven distribution of water within the different regions in the country. And we also have an uneven distribution when we compare water resources percentage for the different regions with surface area and with the population. If we compare, for example, the North region with the Northeast region, we can spot the difference in terms of water availability and the surface area and population. In the Northeast, we have really shortage of water and we have a high population and high area. I'm sorry, some of the slides are in Portuguese, but I think you can spot from the pictures. Okay, I'll try to introduce you some basic principles of our National Water Resources Policy. It's a federal law from 1997. And the basic principles are: water is a public good, water is a limited natural resource which has economic value. Priority in the use of water resources is given to human consumption and animals. The river basin is the territorial unit for the implementation of the National Water Resources Management System, and water resources management should always allow for multiple uses of water. Water resources management shall be decentralized and shall involve participation of the government, water users, local communities, and organized civil society. And I think we are talking, this is very important, this is a very important principle for our advice, and I think it's a very inclusive policy. Young people can be anywhere in this water management system in Brazil. In fact, everybody can be anywhere. Universities can be from the water user side, from the organized civil society. And those are our management tools, our instruments, our main instruments from the water management policy. We have the water resources plan, we have the water resources information system, the water course classification, which relates to water quality classes, and water rights, concessions, water charge, and they are all related to each others, and it's all related to monitoring and capacity building. So I think from these you can see the main challenge in terms of professions, different skills, different backgrounds. And this is the main picture of our National Water Resources Management System. We have different levels from national, state, and the watershed or basin level. We also have different institutional levels. And for example, from the national level, our main institution for the management side is the National Water Agency, which is now National Water and Sanitation Agency. It's also encompassed the sanitation policy from 2021. And for the state level, for example, at the same institution, with the same institution, we have APAC. It's the Pernambuco State Water and Climate Agency. And we also have this River Basin Committee, which encompasses the government, the water users, community, and organized civil society. And in some cases, basically, when we have water charge, we may have the river basin agency. So this is our main framework for the water resource management policy. And I think this is an overview of this water management system and also the challenges in terms of water professions. We integrate many different disciplines from the engineering side, from the social sciences, from the biological science, and so they are all integrated from basic and applied sciences, and this also includes law, mathematics, physics, statistics, soil sciences, and meteorology, and so it's a really very challenge to integrate all these disciplines. And just for a general overview, also what are the main duties, the main roles of the National Water Agency. It's to deal with hydrological information, rainfall, water level, springfall, water quality, and real-time data. Also deal with regulation for users and dams, database infrastructure, water permits, charge, inspection, and as you may imagine, with this a huge country, this is a great challenge. And it's not different from APAC. I'm sorry, it's in Portuguese, but it's related. But we also deal, in case of APAC, we also deal with weather forecasts and climate forecasts, and also climate change issues with some studies and research to support the instruments, the water management policy, and also with some big infrastructure projects like San Francisco Transboundary project. Some of our activities in APAC, of course, I have to talk about what is closer to me. So this is the support. We have the role of support the two river basin committees, and with this new COVID era, we are now faced with online meetings, as the one we are having now, this online Youth Water Congress. So we are now facing this new challenge, and it's not really easy, because we have people from countryside, from different places within the state, within the country. So this is really challenging, and we really have to have some special tools and innovation to deal. It's not only a technological issue, it's also a social issue. We are talking about inclusiveness, and this is really challenging for this new era. I also would like to show something related to river basin revitalization, which is one of our challenges here, also related to water resources management policy. This is just a simple example related to urban parks in this context of water production, and it's very inclusive. I don't know if I will manage to show a short video. I'm sorry, it's Portuguese, but it's Okay, we call these urban parks in the riverbanks, we call windows to the river, because we only put windows to where we really would like to, I'm sorry, to have a beautiful landscape. So it's a way to make people a part of the role to take care of the river in the water management system. We have a space for education, for leisure, and for reforestation areas. So this is some innovative initiatives to really include people in the role of water management in the state. We also deal with water resources master plan. We are updating one at the moment, and here we show different stages just before the COVID, before the pandemic, with these normal meetings and workshops and the conventional ones with everybody attending from different places. Now we have to face with these online meetings and workshops. It's important to listen to everybody and to call attention to the main issues when we are aiming to have a water resources master plan. We also, as we deal with weather forecasts and climate issues, we also have many technological tools. We have a weather radar, we deal with climate models and monitoring rules. But the most important now is that we have the opportunity really to exchange ideas, exchange tools with our different institutions. For example, we are part of the Drought Monitor. It's a national initiative. And this is very important for our state, but it's important for the whole country, in fact. And we face the challenge to integrate the tools, to integrate people for this task, for this role from the weather and climate side. We also have these monitoring issues, the monitoring rivers and reservoirs, and we are applying a concept of citizen science. Local people, they just take the measurements and they put in the app, and then we have this all available in information system. We also have this early warning system. It's real-time monitoring for really having this alert system in terms of floods. The water quality monitoring for rivers and reservoirs, we have a partnership with the national water agencies, and we also have a partnership with our environmental state agency. So this was really difficult task during the pandemic era, but we are now adapting with some new technological issues. Okay, I would like to call some attention to this. This is not something new. It's a decision support system for the water use rights, but it was under a contract with another federal university in the northeast of Brazil, the Federal University of Alagoas. And we had funds from a national program with the National Water and Sanitation Agency. I'll talk a bit later. And so we really had very young people working in this decision support system. And it was a very good experience, a good practice for the new era. From the research side, I would like to mention integration from the academia with the water resource system management, with APAC, for example. This research project with a smart framework for real-time monitoring and control of subsurface process processes in managed aquifer recharge application, smart control, which was a cooperation project with German, French institutions and other Latin American institutions, including Brazil. So we had many young people working from the research side and trying to share experience with the management institutions. And I also would like to present briefly this National Program for Water Management Strengthening. It's a partnership between ANA, the National Water and Sanitation Agencies, with the state institutions for the water management system, water resources management system, and we have different targets for different variables. For example, this related to legal framework. When we reach a target, we are paid for that, and this money comes back to the water resources management system. And so we can contract development of tools, of new process. And this is a way of employing people, employing young people, for example. Another variable from this national program, which relates to research development and innovation. As you can see, our state has a very good level, Pernambuco State. So it's all related with an agreement to reach some targets. It's a national program which integrates the whole country in the water resources management system. And it's a very good opportunity for young people, for young scientists, young professionals. This is our network of cooperation within our state water management system, from state institutions to national institutions like ministry, other secretaries, other research institutions, universities, and also international partnership. And I would like to call some attention from the university side, but to a different role in the university in Brazil, which is something new in Brazil in terms of the water job market. It's our national professional graduation program, which integrates 14 public institutions for a professional formation, post-graduation formation. This is something new. It has a 5 years program, but it's something really exciting, and which is now a good perspective for this new COVID era in terms of background for people integrating different disciplines. Those are the main institutions, the main universities, and also some other institutions which collaborate with this national network. And some national and international partnerships. For example, we have an integration with the Institute of Water Education, the UNESCO Institute, an agreement with APAC. So the students from this Prof. Agua, this national post-graduation program, they take part in the training of the river basin committees, for example, and other APAC roles within the country. So it's a very good way of having collaboration from young people from different parts of the country. And just a general view of the different background of the students. We have people from administration, with an administration background, geology, philosophy, different engineering, education, and computing science. So they are all related in a really big challenge in terms of capacity building. And they are related to the existing concept, the existing approach, which integrates science, technology, engineering, maths, from education that focuses on the hard science, develops critical thinking skills, and improves problem-solving abilities. This is our inspiration for this national program. And I'm talking from both sides, from the academic side, and also from the state institutions in the national framework for the water management policy. So, for example, the students they are in the river basin committees in the state, in the different river basin committees. It is very important for developing capacity, for capacity building, for training, for the different roles, for the different tasks. And I'm going to the end now, just to mention one important project. I was involved with different countries. This was this LISTO project. It's a Latin American and European cooperation on innovation and entrepreneurship related to innovation issues, to entrepreneurship, to really try to develop a skill sets of teachers, staffs, and students, and spread a university-wide spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. If you go to the web page, we have a whole set of different materials and outcomes from the project. And for example, with the innovation, we selected some important areas, and water was one of them. So we had this university industry cooperation in Latin America, for example, related to water, the experience of Pernambuco State as part of the outcomes for this project, this international cooperation project. Okay, so just to finish, to try to bring attention again, I saw that you have this in this program, this Congress program, our United Nations World Water Development Report for 2022 related to groundwater, the invisible, and we want to make this visible. This is one of our challenges in the water resources management job market. Also, bring attention to this Water Health Organization, Water Sanitation Hygiene Strategy. This is part of our global agenda also. And okay, just to finish the final remarks, what I can say for the final words, what is the trend, what has changed, what is changing. I think we have to really search for social technical innovation in terms of process tools, and it is all related to communication skills. I'm sorry, I had some digital transformation, dissemination, ESG. So this is something that we really have to look ahead. I can, from my side, I think the main challenge is related to integrations in terms of disciplines, of knowledge and people. And we are talking about a transdisciplinarity approach. And my main advice for young people, for everybody, it's a continuous learning process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Susanna, for your very informative but also inspiring presentation that will give us a lot of think on what is happening at this part of the world, let's say, in terms of the water issues and how we are going to deal with these issues anyway. And I would like to welcome in our panel Professor Phoebe Koundouri. I would like to thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
I would like to introduce to all of you who is Phoebe Koundouri, just to have an idea. Phoebe Koundouri is a world-renowned environmental economic professor, which that means that she comes from another expertise, let's say, another scientific area, which is very important for us to combine. So she's an environmental economist professor and global leader in sustainable development. She is widely recognized as a pioneer in innovative, human-centric interdisciplinary systems for the sustainable interaction between nature, society, and economy. In fact, she is listed in the 1% of the most cited women economists. Let's see about the gender issue here, just to mention it once. And she's included within the official Stanford University list of top 2% of the world scientists, with 15 published books, more than 500 published peer-reviewed scientific articles, book chapters, research and policy reports. She is elected member of the World Academy of Art and Science and president of the European Association of Environmental and Natural Resource Economists. She is also a professor currently at the Athens University of Economics and Business in Greece. She is founding director of Sustainable Development Unit at Athena Information Technology Research Center. And also she's focusing on, she's co-chairs to the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network for Europe. I think that I will stop here just saying that she's IPCC delegate. Also, she acts as advisor on sustainable development to the EU, to the World Bank, to the UN, to FAO, to WHO, and NATO. So I think she's a person that has to say a lot to us all, and we are very happy, Phoebe, to have you here. Please share.
Thank you so much, Elpida. Thank you so much, and thank you for your generous introduction. I will be talking about transformations towards sustainability, and I will try to put water in the picture for the needed transformations. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, with Elpida and her group and the partners of that organize this event, because all these are very important partners in paving the way towards sustainable water use. Usually I start my presentations with this sketch. These days, the different crises that we are facing, the multi-level crisis that we are facing, the pandemic, the huge recession that derives from it, the climate change crisis, the biodiversity collapse, and on top of all these population crisis, the increasing population and the disproportionate imbalance increase in different parts of the world. And we are faced with the challenge, this generation and the next is faced with the challenge of simultaneously addressing all these crises and really recognizing that the way we address this crisis has to be international. It cannot be just national, because the pandemic has proven that the world is only as resilient as the least resilient country and person in it. So this is what we work as Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IFORIA. And this is a cluster of research and innovation institutions that fits its work into different international networks. The Research Laboratory on Socioeconomic and Environmental Sustainability at the Athens University of Economics and Business. The Research and Innovation Center called Athena, which focuses on information technologies and tries to develop green and digital solution pathways towards the sustainability transition. The International Center for Research on the Environment and the Economy. The Stochastic Modeling and Application Laboratory, again at the Athens University of Economics and Business. These four research centers attract a lot of competitive research and innovation funding, and their results we try to accelerate the innovation results to the market, because we all know that the sustainability transition cannot be achieved without massive employment and massive deployment of innovations. We don't have enough time until we reach the point of no return with regards to climate crisis and biodiversity crisis. So our only hope is through technological advancement and social innovation, and we need to make sure that whatever innovations are produced in research are fast to reach the point where the businesses, the financial sector, all the different stakeholders, the local authorities, the national authorities, the international authorities can adopt these innovations, and through this adaptation, through this adoption, they can accelerate the transition to a sustainable world. We have a specific climate accelerator on maritime, and which has to do with solutions for climate resilient and climate mitigating innovations in the maritime sector, and also Brigade Connect, another accelerator with innovations that have to do with climate adaptation to floods, tsunamis, heavy precipitation, heat waves, desertification, extreme aridity, forest fires, all these extreme weather events that are becoming more often and higher in severity due to climate change. Between the different accelerators, which are financed and driven through a public-private partnership under the European Institute of Innovation and Technology and mobilized through Climate Kick. This is the biggest public-private partnership in Europe that tries to accelerate the innovations that are relevant to a climate neutral economy. At the moment, we have more than 150 startups, that is new companies or new parts of all big companies that provide solutions for the transition to climate neutrality, and many of them are specifically focused on water. And we feed all this research, innovation, and innovation acceleration effort into different networks that we lead. The European Association of Environmental Resource Economies. I'm the elected president. This is the biggest association in the world of resource economies with members from 85 different countries, trying to mobilize the economic solutions, the financial and economic solution pathways for the transition. And of course, the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the biggest network in the world, with a hub in each and every country of the world, having a mission to transfer solutions that are developed within universities and research institutions to all other stakeholders that are there to adopt the solutions and accelerate the transition to sustainability. So we are talking, we are creating a bridge between academia, research, and research development with politicians, policymakers, the financial sector, the businesses, the NGOs, the national authority, the civil society. I chair the European Hub with more than 400 members, and the Greek Hub with all the universities and research institutions of the country as members. And we also give information to Water Europe, the biggest technology and innovation platform in Europe for water. I co-chair the Value for Water section. And then we also participate, we are founding members of the Nexus Cluster, a cluster of tens of big European projects on the water, food, energy nexus. So let me briefly try to communicate the situation in terms of policy making and try to relate that with water. Sustainability is an old concept starting in 1970, but it is a concept that, if I summarize the last, say, 7 years, I have a good chance of giving you a complete picture of what are the relevant policies, at least in Europe, that try to accelerate the transition to sustainability. So the 17 SDGs relevant to the environment, the economy, and the society, and how we can achieve a holistic transition to sustainable level of welfare for all three. The Paris Agreement, trying to limit global temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius. The recent IPCC report, starting from the one in 2018, which identified 1.5 as the maximum increase in average global temperature that we can afford, that is, that we have the technology to afford and not reduce our welfare dramatically. And in 2017, I think it makes sense to have a look at this graph. These are the 17 SDGs and a clever way to operationalize them. During the Climate Week, we as UNSDSN, we presented these 6 transformations that are needed for the implementation of the SDGs. 17 SDGs are too many priorities for the government to announce, to follow. So we categorize them in 6 transformations that are relevant because they mirror the way governments are organized in ministries: education, gender inequality, health, well-being, and demography, energy decarbonization, sustainable industry, sustainable food, land, water, and oceans, sustainable cities and communities, and the digital revolution for sustainable development. What is interesting to see here is that each and every SDG cannot be fully implemented without all the other SDGs being fully implemented. And each transformation needs all the SDGs involved and implemented, even if the weights of SDG importance is different in the different transformations. What is clear from here is that we have a very holistic network. Okay, and then we have the European Green Deal. Of course, we all know it's climate neutrality by 2050, protecting human life by cutting pollution, clean tech leadership for European companies, and a social cohesion, leaving no one behind. And it is supported by 1 trillion, the European Sustainable Investment Plan, some of it coming from the private sector to hope to be leveraged by public-private partnerships, and some of it, of course, coming from the EU budget. And then we have COVID, and as a response to COVID, we have Next Generation EU, 750 billion in addition to the 1 trillion of the multi-annual financial framework, which includes the European Green Deal budget. This 715 billion to be invested in green and digital investments. So an investment to be funded by the EU Next Generation, or as we call it, the Recovery and Resilience Plan, has to be at minimum 20% digital related and 37% climate related, and respect that do no significant harm to the environment principle. Digital means improve connectivity, help citizens the digital skills, deploy cutting-edge technologies, improve cybersecurity, whereas climate means decarbonize power generation, promote circular economy, protect and restore biodiversity, and strengthen sustainable mobility. 2021 has been a year of extensive policy drafting in the EU. We had the EU adaptation strategy. We had the climate law, which says by 2030 we need a 55% reduction in climate emissions and greenhouse gas emissions, and by 2050 we want to become climate neutral, and 2040 is where we want to achieve an 80% reduction, and these have been transposed into national laws. We have the EU taxonomy that tries to improve the flow of money towards sustainable activities. What qualifies as sustainable? Investments in climate mitigation, adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, circular economy, pollution prevention, control, and biodiversity. And then, of course, we have the proposal for corporate sustainability reporting directive that concerns everybody that is listed in regulated markets or is a large company, and basically increases the requirements for reporting, and not only increases and makes explicit the requirements for sustainability reporting, but it also requires auditing and digital tracking of the reported information. This is very serious because we see that both at the financing level, how the banks decide to finance different investments, and it can be commercial banks, national banks, and multilateral banks, but also how the companies behave in terms of sustainability is becoming heavily regulated. So we are creating a policy framework that makes it very difficult for any company to escape this sustainability regulation. Actually, I should put it on the positive level. It makes the requirements for becoming sustainable more explicit, but also it provides the necessary help and motivation and infrastructure and framework that will help the companies getting the pathway of sustainability. And actually those companies that understand this first will be the most profitable, the most innovative, and the most successful. And of course, we have all these big discussions about which kind of energy is sustainable. Obviously, hydropower is very important. Bioenergy, very important. Hydrogen, very important. The idea is that we set the foundations for a hydrogen economy by 2030 in Europe. But then there is this huge debate about nuclear and natural gas. To cut a long story short, my personal assessment of the situation is that we should be frank and explain that neither nuclear nor natural gas are sustainable or green. Natural gas has a heavy footprint on the environment. Nuclear has a very toxic waste footprint. In order to mitigate those is extremely expensive. We have no need to invest in new nuclear or natural gas stations. Of course, now it is a geopolitical emergency, it's an energy crisis emergency. We had difficult disruptions both due to the COVID, but also due to the recent war, which make the supply much less than what is demanded. And of course, for the short time being, we're going to use even lignite, even natural gas, even nuclear. But the important thing is not to include in the taxonomy these two resources, not to include them because in the taxonomy, we're talking about new investments. These are new investments. And if you're deciding on new investments, you have no reason to go to nuclear or natural gas because they are more expensive, they are heavy on the environment, they are heavy on the health of people, they have a negative footprint both on the environment and health, they are more expensive, as I said before, and at the end of the day, we don't control natural gas within our country. Whereas solar, wind, and offshore wind, and bioenergy and hydroenergy, we can control it within Europe. And this is energy sufficiency and energy security that everything shows in very important. We also had the Fit for 55 package of these 13 different legislative proposals that had to do with the way energy and land and forest and aviation and maritime and cars are regulated within Europe, a major revision of all our policies so that we are able to reach the 55% reduction in emissions by 2030. And at the global level, going again from the SDGs to the to Europe and then back to the global level, this is the picture after the COP 26. We had 40 countries agreeing to climate neutrality by 2050. We have China by 2060, India by 2070. At the COP, we had a major interest, first time after 20 COPs I've been in my life, first time the financial institutions vows to put climate at the heart of finance. And this is important. And it happens now because technology has made it cheaper to use renewables than any other energy sources. So this is a revolution, but it's a technology-driven revolution. And it's important that now technology is able to provide the cost-efficient solutions for the transition. Otherwise, we would have no hope of achieving this. Of course, if you look at the map, you will see that only in Europe, or mostly in Europe, we have the translation of all these promises into policies and legislation. And it is important to have the transposition of promises and pledges into policies because it's the only way to accelerate the transition. And so this is how the pictures look like. 2022 was mostly about the EU taxonomy and the energy crisis. I told you my view on that. Now, with regards to clean water and sanitation, this is the picture of clean water and sanitation, SDG 6, in the world today. This is a snapshot of our global report on SDGs published by UNSDSN, which shows the level of achievement of each SDG in the world. This is a clean water and sanitation SDG. Green means SDG achieved. Yellow means challenges remain. Orange means significant challenges remain. Red means major challenges remain. And this is about the sharing, availability, and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And as you see today, we are far from achieving the SDGs, but this particular SDG, but even if we look at the projections, by 2030, we will still have major areas in the world where this SDG will be not achieved. And as you know, we have both severe water scarcity around the world. It's not just Africa and part of Asia. We have physical water scarcity and approaching physical water scarcity across the world, and this is something that gets intensified if we also look at the water quality risk indices, which are there across the world as well. So quantity and quality around the world are under increased risk, and this of course puts a major risk on our economy and our society. If you look at the water, food, energy nexus and you try to see how they affect our economy and society, it becomes obvious that they affect almost all SDGs. And as I showed you in the diagram that I showed you before on this transformation, it is really the case that no SDG can be fully implemented without all the other SDGs being implemented. Here I tried to make the connection between food production, renewable energy production, and clean water. And you can see how many SDGs are involved in this water, food, energy nexus. And if I put the water, food, energy, and biodiversity nexus, then the picture becomes even more complicated. So it's a very important nexus for our economy and society, and this transposes into the fact that it also drives job creation and economic growth around the world. 1.50 billion jobs, 36% of the world's total active workforce are likely to be moderately water dependent. And this basically means that 78% of the jobs constituting the global workforce are water dependent, which is huge. What we try to do in this annual report of the transformations for the joint implementation of the Agenda 2030 and the European Green Deal is try to connect the SDGs, the European Green Deal, the European semester process, and the EU Next Generation in order to support policymakers with actionable strategies that can guide the EU-wide and national economic recovery in line with the sustainability agenda. And what we find, and what is also relevant for the water sector, is that we need to work in a very systemic framework, understand our different systems, the energy system, the water system, the agricultural system, the mobility system, and then find the synergy between this system and come up with holistic solutions with a mixture, with an optimal mixture of solutions that will transform all the systems, building on the synergies between the systems. So beyond fiscal stimulus that is expected to boost aggregate demand, this crisis calls for transformative public investments that will shape a sustainable, fair, green, and digital transition and leverage private sector investment. And we showcase this through machine learning investigations of the connection between the 9 different policies of the European Green Deal: biodiversity, farm to fork, sustainable agriculture, clean energy, sustainable industry, building and renovating, sustainable mobility, eliminating pollution, and climate action. Each of these has a very heavy water element. And then we try to connect this with machine learning approaches with the 17 SDG, and we really find a very close connection between them. And we even find a very close connection between the recommendations of the EU during the European semester process. This is a 6-month process where the EU recommends to each country how they can reach the European average in the sectors where they are lagging behind. So what we did is compare the recommendations of the European semester in different areas of fiscal policies, investments, taxation, social policies, and so on, with the level of achievement of the SDGs. And we find actually that the recommendations of the EU are very closely related to the recommendations that one would make if she or he has had looked at the level of achievement of the SDG. There is alignment between lagging behind in terms of SDG achievement and the recommendations given by the European semester project with regards to lags for each country in achieving the European average. And this is good news. It means that the European Green Deal, the European growth strategy is consistent with the SDGs. For Greece, we have 80% alignment. We did this exercise for each and every country, and we find 72% efficiency ratio between the 27 different countries of the EU. And we show that we should have a systems innovation approach. We should identify how the mixture of renewable, circular economy, nature-based solutions, adaptation to climate, digitalization should be mobilized in order to achieve not incremental but transformational change. We need to move beyond project finance model and look at portfolio of finance model. We need to create portfolios of connected innovation projects that learn from each other and get a wide appreciation of change leverages. And this is the only way through systems innovation that we can achieve the fundamental transformation that we need at the pace that we need it, because incremental change will not be enough. It's not enough anymore to have one project and achieve integrated holistic water management in this river basin. It's not enough. You need to look at all the different river basins at the water sector in general, and then see the water sector, the water system in conjunction with the other systems, the energy system, the food production system, even the mobility system, and come up with a very holistic framework which will identify synergies and restructure all the elements of the bigger system in a way that it makes the system function better and actually accelerate the change that is needed to reach the 1.5 maximum change in climate, but also the other transformations that are needed. We need rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented changes in all aspects of the society. And if you read our report, we explain how we can do this within systems innovation. So this system innovation should be understood as a combination of systems and a process of innovation so as to enable transformational change. So we need to get all the stakeholders to agree on the current status quo and the vision they want to go, and then co-design pathways, technological, financial, and policy pathways that will achieve the accelerated transformation that we need. And in order to do this, one very important element is finance. Let me go to the finance section of this process. It is important to be if you look at a water company, for example, and you want to transpose it into a sustainable company, you need to go through 3 steps: identification, development, assessment, and monitoring. And the identification means looking at the important units in the value chain of the business, mapping the value chain of the business, and identifying the products and services in this value chain. And once you do that, you are actually able, let me see if this will work. Yes, you are actually able to see a company in all its different elements and identify where the biggest discrepancy between where you want to be in terms of sustainability and where you are exist. And then you need to measure companies' performance with regards to economic elements, environmental, social, and governance elements. And there are many KPIs with regards to the hundreds of KPIs that can help you do this. And then you need to link these ESG KPIs to the SDGs. So linking the SDGs to the KPIs is important because it allows you to understand how the environment and the economy and the society are connected. So what is important to understand is that the basis of what you do and the most important part of your capital is your natural capital. Then you have, and basically this is reflected in SDG 15, 14, 6, and 13, climate, water, marine, and land. And then based on this, you have society, all the elements of the SDGs that are relevant to society, and then you have economy, 4 SDGs that are directly relevant to the economy. And these have to be transposed and compared with the environmental, social, and governance KPIs. And in this way, you can see your company in a very holistic framework, which identifies the value of natural capital, the value of human capital, and the effect on the society, and the value of financial capital and productive capital, what we can easily measure in financial accounts. Once you have recognized all different sources of capital, then you are able to manage them well in an optimal way that will allow you not only to be profitable, but also to conserve the environment on which you depend, because it's the ecosystem services of the environment that provide a huge proportion of your productive capital, which is used for your profitability. And you can see in some work that we did that we find that good financial performance and lower systemic risk is connected with ESG performance, which is important to show. Then let me also give you a very quick way to understand how one can transpose the effect on human health and biodiversity and natural resources on a monetary, let's say, scale, and then be able to include this in cost-benefit analysis, which at the end of the day can guide your investment decision. So by using life cycle analysis, you can identify from the start of, from the very birth of a product, looking at the raw materials of the product, you can identify the impact of each possible change in the production line of a particular project on health, on human health, of biodiversity, ecosystem, and natural resources. And then we economists have developed a big array on so-called non-market valuation method that allows us to derive the willingness to pay, the value that people assign to these changes. And in this way, you can monetize these changes and you can include them in your cost-benefit analysis. So your cost-benefit analysis with regards to an investment decision, say in a water company, will include not just the financial profits, but also the monetary translation of the effects on the society and the environment. And this is important for allocating correctly your natural capital, your human capital, and your productive capital. I will move on just to close this lecture by introducing some projects of ours. We are a big team of 200 researchers. All of our funding is competitive from ERC, Horizon, and EIT, funding mainly in Europe, but also across the world. We work on research and innovation, innovation acceleration, deep demonstration, and education and training. Our approach is very interdisciplinary. Each slide you see is a different project with a multi-partner consortium, and most of the case a multi-million project focusing on 4 thematic areas that we have. The first one is climate change, mitigation, adaptation, green, digital, just recovery pathways. The second one is blue growth, and this includes both marine resources, but many projects on the interaction between inland and coastal water, where most of the human interaction with nature takes place. Within this thematic area, we have the Maritime Accelerator, we have the Sustainable Euro-Asian Seas Initiative, which is sustainable growth in the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, the Caspian, and the Aral Sea, and many projects that have to do with using resources from the sea, but also projects that have to do with sustainable shipping, sustainable coastal management, sustainable aquaculture, sustainable energy production. Then a lot of water, food, energy nexus, smart agriculture, and smart urban water systems, and lately we won this ERC Synergy Grant on the development of smart urban water systems, putting together 4 different disciplines: decision theory, which I represent as the PI, machine learning, systems control, and hydroinformatics. So this is a project that really looks at SDG 6 and tries to understand how this SDG 6 will be implemented in urban settings. Why urban? We understand that agriculture is the biggest consumer of water, but urban, half of humanity lives in cities, and by 2050, 70% of the population is predicted to live in urban settings. And so it is important to figure out how in the short, medium, and long run we are going to face the water provision and sanitation problem for the urban areas. As I said, our 4 different disciplines coming together to solve this problem. The project is particularly interested in integrating long-term, short-term, and medium-term decisions in order to allow for the development of an adaptive, flexible, robust under uncertainty and ambiguity, water quality and quantity considerations are included in an urban water urban system that really adheres to economic, social, ethical, and environmental considerations. So you can look at the website for additional details, and I will close with our work on innovation acceleration. As I told you, most of it is under the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, and here we do deep demonstration projects, but also innovation acceleration and upskilling and reskilling, with many professional courses for upskilling and reskilling, and also a lot of effort in identifying innovations that can really be transformational in accelerating the transition that we need to have. So we have many startups involved. I will not go through them, but there are more than 150 startups, and there are information on this, but I wanted to finish by saying that we also have regular competitions like this InnoWise challenge, which is focused on finding innovative solutions for water scarcity. This is a cross-kick project, so the climate kick, the food kick, the digital kick, and the manufacturing are setting up competitions for identifying innovative solutions for water scarcity in Southern Europe, providing competitions for agriculture, for food and beverage, utilities and infrastructure, and giving prizes for solutions that seem interesting. A new opening of this call is coming very soon, and I hope some of you will be interested. On this, I will close this talk, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it was a very innovative, very new things for us, very integrated approach. I think that all the young people that are listening, and not only the young people, are now having a very good and very comprehensive idea of what is happening in Europe in relation to sustainability issues and to water more specifically. Thank you very much. I will proceed with Josh Newton, but he is coming from another part of the water sector, the private one, and I think that the combination is perfect between the three experts to initiate and trigger discussions. Please, Josh, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I do not have a PowerPoint. I'm just going to speak. And yeah, so I wouldn't say I come from the private sector. I guess I am a freelancer, but I've almost never worked for a private sector organization. I've always worked for the United Nations, World Bank, NGOs, think tanks, universities. So almost everybody but the private sector. But yeah, I am as myself a private entity. But so yeah, thank you again for having me at this session. My understanding was the session was about water and jobs, so that's what I will focus on during my talk. In terms of, I'll explain first about the platform that we have, Josh's Water Jobs, and then go into what life is like in kind of the water arena in terms of what things have changed since COVID came about, and then providing some pieces of advice for job seekers who are looking for jobs in the water sector. So first, Josh's Water Jobs, very simply, it's basically a jobs platform. So what we try to do is find available water jobs, water and sanitation, WASH, and not only jobs, but scholarships, internships, consultancies, volunteer opportunities, awards, research grants. We try to, every opportunity that we can think of, we put on this platform from all over the world. We like to focus on opportunities that anybody can apply to internationally, but then we also have started to go more into national positions and national governments. And we'll probably, since we probably capture most of the international opportunities out there, as we expand, we'll probably do more national level opportunities and all over the world. So it produces about, I think we're around 250, 300 jobs, other opportunities a week. And at any given point, there's about 1,000 jobs on there. And we've also started to do podcasts, talking with both junior professionals and senior professionals about their advice to young professionals about how, basically what their story was in trying to get in their first water jobs, especially for the senior professionals. I find it very interesting at what their first water job was like 40 years ago, and what lessons, experiences they have to impart on us because I still look for jobs too, and getting that advice. But then also talking to young professionals about what their experiences are, because things have changed since searching for jobs 40 years ago and searching for jobs now. And some of their advice has been absolutely fascinating to hear about in their own experiences in the job search. I think we've done about 6 or 7 of those, so you can find them all on our website. And then we've tried to do more blogging about different aspects of career development and water and sanitation. So we're trying to ramp up and provide more resources for job seekers. We hope in the future to have a database of calls for papers and abstracts for academics. We're hoping to have an events database. We're hoping to have a MOOC, an online course database as well, all as it relates to water. So really to become a central node for ways that professionals, both young and old, can develop their careers. So that's just a little introduction about that. So professionally myself, as I said, I'm a freelancer and have worked mostly in global level processes around water. So in helping develop SDG 6 and the rollout of SDG 6. And then by trade, I'm a transboundary water person. That's what I worked with for a long time, but now have focused more on this global space. And how countries interact with one another over water issues at the global level. So basically within the UN system and in other international organizations. So that's my own personal water expertise, if you will. But then, as I mentioned, I've kind of fallen into this, the website and kind of, water human resources, if you will. So it's given me, I think we've posted it's either it's over 40,000 jobs now in the past 6 years on the website. So it gives me, and I've looked at every single one of those. I've uploaded every single one of those. So it's given me some interesting insights into that space, but also how things have trended, both before COVID, during, and now as we work our way out of this, the intense part of the pandemic. So I'll just start with a few kind of insights in what I've seen with the trends that are going on. And then as I like to do with these types of jobs talks, is to just give a few pieces of advice about, how I myself, what I've learned over the years about what works in looking for a job. And then, I'd love to have a discussion and talk about these issues with the other panelists and the young professionals that are in attendance. So to start off, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and in terms of the job search, I would say it's not a lot different. And it's basically, and it was mentioned in Susana's talk about, a lot of this, and as we're doing right now, a lot of it is online now. In terms of like even interviews where they might have done in-person interviews before. Now it's we're doing online ones. Application processes have not really changed at all from what I've seen. Some still take a long time. And so I think as organizations are dealing with different things, some of these processes are taking longer than normal, and some of them were already quite long. But yeah, on that side of things, applying for jobs, not a lot has changed. I'll go into some other things that have changed though, but and then kind of thematically, what we're looking at all these jobs on the website and seeing what's trending, and this doesn't only have to do with COVID, but it also has to do with what's going on in the world right now and the crises and the awareness of the crises, because there's been water issues for a very long time, but there's the awareness of those crises at the political level is becoming more, it's increasing. So that means more attention, more resources are focused on that. But in terms of, so I'll look at both kind of what's going on right now in terms of COVID, but then also other things that are causing trends in thematic areas that are changing. And so one is WASH. And this is water, sanitation, hygiene. And that was definitely linked to COVID because obviously way to mitigate the spread of COVID is good WASH practices. So there were a lot of jobs in the WASH sector. And also what happened a lot was a lot of research in WASH to figure out new ways, better ways to ensure WASH. And as we get closer to 2030 and the closure of the SDGs, there will be more and more momentum, as was mentioned, I think by both speakers, about how, we're not going to, right now, we're not going to reach SDG 6. So there will be an urgency that'll kick in a few years as we get closer and more resources will be put at that, put towards that. And so that universal access to WASH is going to create a lot of jobs as resources get thrown at that to try to meet that target. And then another area is, so that was more focused on WASH, and now just other is, as we're all talking about climate change. So climate change adaptation and resilience, a lot of the water jobs that are out there, or I would say not, I'd say it's more than say 5 years ago, definitely more than 10 years ago, that there's more and more jobs on water and climate change climate change adaptation and water and resilience, and sometimes all three. And that is only going to increase as we have more and more issues related to climate change. As we know that water is the way that climate change expresses itself primarily through floods and droughts. Another few areas that are seeing increases is technology, AI, machine learning, data. As technology improves and increases, gets more out there, like more and more water jobs are focused on that. There's more opportunities in that space so tech professionals to get into water issues, definitely. And then I would say is in one of my recommendations later is for young professionals to have an understanding of the technology out there, if not focus on it, because that will create job opportunities for you. Talking indeed about the private sector, is the private sector is becoming more and more aware of water issues out there and how their existence depends often on secure sources of water. So corporate water stewardship is becoming more prevalent in organizations around the world. Some multinationals are very aware of the situation and put a lot of effort into it, and others not so much. But even I've seen jobs even in small and medium enterprises now having water stewardship positions, or at least in a sustainability position. Water stewardship is one of the key pillars that they're looking at. So, and that's only going to increase as well as we have, more issues, more water scarcity, because that's where we're trending right now. And the role of the private sector also in water is increasing. So there'll be more jobs available, and that's definitely what I've seen in the trending of what jobs are open. And another area which was mentioned earlier is gender. Just as the world becomes more aware of gender issues, especially as it relates to water, there are definitely more opportunities and more focus on how those two areas interact and mix. And so there's actually jobs very focused on gender and water. So that is also on the increase. So other things kind of post-COVID, or kind of, some places we're still in it. As I said, there's more research opportunities in academia related to water, and not just WASH, but, in water. So I've definitely seen that, more scholarship opportunities. I think, the website, we go to the same number of websites. It's been the same for a few years, so we can really see what changes because the source is static. And I think we had PhD scholarships last year. In this year, it doubled this year on PhD scholarships that were related to water. So that's been on an increase. There also is just more jobs related to water. I think it's always people always have a hard time finding jobs because you just want the right thing, but globally, there are more opportunities in the water and sanitation space than there were in previous years. And I think it's, as I mentioned already, because there's more awareness about the issues, there's more crises going on. And it's also that the trend is that less people are studying these issues overall. And I think there was Phoebe referenced the World Water Development Report from 2016 on water and jobs and how many jobs are related to water. And in that document, it's also stated that some countries already don't have enough professionals working on water and sanitation issues. Now, this ranges from, technical people who have maybe 2-year associate degree or, professional degree up to more, master's degree. But countries are seeing more and more shortages. So with all these factors combined, there's more opportunities out there. And part of what I'd like to do with the website eventually is to help people, bring people into the sector, because the gap is only going to grow and grow as we get more and more issues around water. So how do we get more people to work on these issues and study these issues and work on them? We're seeing a little bit more home-based, jobs. We're working remotely. So that's something that I think, a lot of us had to adapt to no matter what during the pandemic, and we'll see how much that actually changes as we kind of, things become more normal. But a lot of that will stay the same, or they'll be more hybrid, like you can work a few days from home. So that changes kind of things quite a bit in terms of, and we all know this now for the most part, about how it is to work at home versus in the office, and finding what works best for time management. So let's see. Another thing that is networking, or I like to call it community building rather than networking, but it's that, we haven't been going to conferences, workshops in person, and that's where a lot of people, kind of look for jobs and talk to other organizations about water opportunities. And that's not happening. It's starting to come back now, but that is one of the major differences in looking for a job, is to be in those in-person conferences. So that whole, the concept of networking has really changed, because in a forum like this, even though we're talking to each other, and it's hard to network or have one-on-one conversations unless you have that specifically built in if the technology is there. But the in-person obviously is ideal for that. So yeah, and in my advice a little bit later on, I'll address how to tackle that a little bit. Other kind of trends that are happening is that, before, if you were from a developed country, you could go work kind of wherever you wanted in the world in a way because they needed capacity. But what's happening more and more now is that countries, and kind of as it should be, countries are developing their own capacity. And so you see more jobs that require people being from just that country, and not having international people swoop in and help out. So yes, there's UN jobs and other international jobs, but a lot more of the NGOs and others are hiring locals now, which makes a lot of sense. So which is, it's a good trend. So that's just what I like, again, something I'm seeing. So the true international jobs are going to become less and less as the capacity develops in other countries around the world. Yeah, so I think that's kind of that part of the presentation and where things are at with COVID. And now just for some, a few pieces of advice here and there that I like to give when dealing with the job search, is that first, like, people love to be asked advice about what they think or where their career is going. So I would say never hesitate to reach out to anybody about asking for career advice. Or it's not about asking for a job, it's just asking about, like, okay, this is where I'm at in my life. This is what I've done. This is what I'd like to do. What insight could you give me from your own experience that would help me in my next steps? I still do this now. I'm in my 40s and I still do this when I'm looking at my next opportunities, because it's just that wisdom that's out there. And people love to talk about their own experiences and impart their own wisdom on others. So even if it's some important person, high level, like, they love to talk to young professionals most of the time. And so I would say just don't be hesitant, don't be scared to reach out. And the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. So to anybody, head of an organization, whatever, somebody you think would be able to give you good pointers on your career trajectory, don't hesitate to reach out and ask for advice. Let's see, others is that, yeah, it is about, putting yourself out there. So this kind of networking, asking advice. Well, the best advice I ever got when I was a young professional, I think I was 19 or 20, was create your own luck. So the only way to have luck happen is kind of put yourself out there and create opportunities where things can happen. So it is going to talk to people. It's having a lot of coffees with people. It's going to conferences if you can, and just putting yourself out there. Because if you just sit behind your computer, things won't happen. So it's about really moving and having flexibility as well, and being able to take opportunities when they pop up, to take advantage of, and again, that's been my own experience, is that I had great opportunities, even if they were short term, but they opened other doors in my career. Another tidbit is there's many both local and global young professional water associations and organizations. So you have the Water Youth Network, you have the Young Water, well, I never get it right, but the Parliament for Water, Youth Parliament for Water. And those are global ones. You have regional ones. There's one in the Mediterranean, and then there's national chapters of many of these. And being part of those really gets this kind of peer mentoring, peer advice that's really, really important. Because as I said, somebody who's in their 50s or 60s, or even me in my 40s, doesn't have the same experience as someone who applying to jobs who's in their 20s, and the technology involved and what employers are looking for. So it's really, you can learn a lot from your peers if you're in your 20s. So I highly recommend joining those platforms, because they facilitate those discussions between one another, and they open doors, and you meet people from around the world, and it's just a very holistic experience that just adds to, it opens your mind, opens doors all the way around. In terms of, during the job search, if you're not working, I recommend people to do internships, to volunteer, start a podcast, start a blog, just put yourself out there, keep busy, show that you're active and engaged and learning, because that motivation really goes a long way when you do talk to a future employer, and seeing that you just haven't sat still during the time of searching for jobs. So yeah, keep busy. And I mean, that's almost one reason why my website came about. I'd been doing it as just a list for a long time, but then I myself went through a period of not being able to get a job, and it made sense also to, well, it's time to sink some time and energy into making this into a website, and look where it's now. It's grown considerably. So so stay busy and stay productive is really, really important while you're looking for a job. And then just a few, what I've been running into recently and seeing in job descriptions and talking to employers about the skills that that are being searched for right now. I'm sure there's many skills, but ones that I'm seeing that have maybe been lacking or going down is writing. Good writing is really a desirable skill. I've definitely gotten jobs because I'm not such a bad writer, and or it's a writing job. So again, that just opens doors to be a good communicator, both in the written and verbal form, is very effective, and employers really love that. So they don't have to double check your work. They don't have to spend time editing. So writing well is a really higher desired skill. Also, I'm more of I'm from the social sciences side of things, but in water you can study water from many, many different angles. But being able to translate across, say, the technical to the political, even to the legal, to the financial or economics, is a increasingly important skill. And I think Susanna mentioned this in her first about transdisciplinarity. It's not working across disciplines, but able to have enough knowledge to be able to translate between them, because often if an engineer talking to a politician, they don't understand, even if it's about water, they're not understanding each other. So being able to translate between those different backgrounds is really important. It will become more and more useful. And then, as I mentioned, on the technology side, being aware and understand the trends in technology and where things are going, I think is definitely what employers are looking for. I feel behind in those terms, and who knows if I'll ever catch up. But for the younger generation, where that's definitely a reality they're more familiar with just because of how they've grown up. But then where the water sector is going in terms of, one of the solutions, not the only solution, but one of the solutions being more technology. It's to be savvy in understanding of what's out there and how to utilize that technology, I think is important and will open doors. So that's about what I have in terms of those kind of areas, but happy to answer any questions and discuss more. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I think it was very much to the point and what the young people want to know and need to know. But I would suggest that we now have a more interactive discussion, because we have heard the three experts from different angles and from different also sciences, which is really this interdisciplinarity helps a lot, as you all said, that you are coming from different scientific areas. I would ask Philip, as the youngest or the representative of the youngest. I'm not saying, Michael, that you are not young, because I'm surely the oldest, but still I will ask Philip to open up, to trigger the discussion, and then ask also the audience to interact. But please, I ask Philip, then I ask Michael, and then we will evolve the discussion.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all our speakers. I have just written down all the, you can't see it because of the background, but I've written down the list of all of Josh's advice on job hunting, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And therefore, thank you so much to all our speakers, because it's been really interesting to see and hear about the work you're doing, and also your advice for job search and what has maybe changed a bit during COVID, even though it might not be much and just different topics might be peaking at the moment. I would also like to invite everyone to submit their questions in the chat box and also in the Q&A section of this webinar. And Yes, I already saw that the first question came through, which I think also is quite interesting, not just for me, but for everyone. There's a question about how important it is to have technical skills, such as the use of geographic information systems, of programming, etc., when it comes to jobs in the water sector. And I think this question is directed to all our speakers, so you're welcome to discuss on this. Susanna.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Phoebe and Josh, for the good presentations, from the good talk. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us also to learn from other experiences. Well, of course, I think the technology skills, technological skills are very important for the water sector. The GIS applications program, it's very important for the models, some models that I mentioned, for the hydrological models, for the climate models. So I think, of course, those are very important, these technical skills. But it's, as I think all of us mentioned, it's a multidisciplinary area. So I think we also have to deal with translating these outcomes from applying these technical skills to others. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree with what Susanna just said. And if you are going into a job that's more social science oriented, you don't have to learn programming and say technical skills. Having an understanding of how they work, I think, is useful. But there, as companies, organizations develop technology around water, those skills are in demand, to have programmers that are making water, was just developing water technology. I see those all the time posted online. So those skills are in demand, but they wouldn't be for a more social science oriented, position. As I said, having a little bit of understanding of them is useful, but those jobs are on the rise. But that's that's specifically what you're doing, and the same for GIS. Like I worked on GIS back when GIS came out a couple decades ago, and so having an understanding of that is very useful for when I'm doing my work. But I'm not working with GIS necessarily. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, I mean, this is quite important. In order to be able to work in a multidisciplinary framework, you don't need to be a deep expert on all of the disciplines, but what you need to be able to do is to understand the other disciplines and be able to synergize with them, be able to integrate the disciplines. This takes training, takes time of working with other disciplines, and it is best provided at even at high school level and then at university, to be able to understand what a holistic interdisciplinary framework means. So we don't need generalists, we need people that are experts in different fields, but are also able to work with other disciplines. And it's the new era, and we have to transform our education system and our upskilling and reskilling efforts towards that.
Yeah, following this, George, you see also this trend in what the companies are, or the scholarship are asking for. I mean, people more devoted to transdisciplinary or very specific technical skills. Because we agree that we need people able to jump from one side to the other, more or less. But then is the reality, or just what are we expecting?
I think honestly, I think it's a mix. I think that, you know, you definitely see jobs out there that the type of degree that is wanted can range from engineering to international development to economics. So I think they're accepting the fact that they might have somebody coming from one of these different disciplines. At the same time, experts are still needed. It's not like all these companies and whatever is looking just for people who can think across. You know, sometimes they just want an engineer. So I think it's a mix, but I think there is an increased recognition that there are people out there that thinking across these disciplines are very helpful for their organizations. And so we have a ways to go still. It's not like all of a sudden everybody's thinking in this multidisciplinary way, but it is trending that direction. And I think it's also influenced by universities who are thinking across disciplines as well, because, you know, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. So as that happens more and more, I think that's going to translate more into actually the workforce as well.
Oh, sorry. If I may, I would say that at the time, I think that we need to invest on knowledge economy. If we could say knowledge economy exists in terms that, as you all said, we need expertise, we need expert people for certain kind of places to deliver results in a term. But I think that we need to change. I could only speak from academia part, of course, but I think that we need to invest on knowledge because it is a finite resource. And if you have good knowledge, and then the other part what I understand is the one is knowledge, the other is information, and the other is cooperation. If I could say 3 pillars that are needed for a good combination of promoting jobs. I think that into the skills that you have all mentioned, I think that we need to have also the ability to work in interdisciplinary groups, because not all the people can work on a transboundary, as you said, or interdisciplinary environment. It's not very easy, but I think at that times it's a very important issue to tell that we need to cooperate with everybody. As you very correctly said, nobody can do anything just alone, or just one country, or just one person. We need to cooperate. So I think that one kind of skill is this need to know to work with each other. And I think that this Congress gave us the one opportunity comes here is that we have a lot of people from different disciplines and different countries that we are sharing our views, we are sharing our ideas, our work, and we are promoting it, because also information, if I may say, there is a gap between theory and practice. So this gap, it is important, and we need to reduce it, if I may say. Thank you. I don't know if...
Well, I think there is another contribution from the chat that I've just seen. And it says, yes, of course, cooperation is the key, and especially involving youth and indigenous communities from the grassroots, which I think also links to maybe links a bit to one of the pieces of advice that Josh has given us, and I just want to stress it again because it's also the reason why I'm here today. It's joining one of the many youth-led organizations in the water sector, because just like the Water Youth Network, the World Youth Parliament for Water, the Mediterranean Youth Water Network, or the many other networks that are around, because I personally always felt that the advice and the support I got from joining the Water Youth Network, joining the youth delegates to the World Water Council, has been very fruitful, very encouraging, and I think it's really how I ended up on this panel, on this organizing committee after all. And it's great. You do not only make colleagues and increase your network, you also make friends for a lifetime. And therefore I can really just encourage everyone to look into what youth-led organization or youth chapter of one of the bigger water sector organizations are suitable for your interest, because they all have a slightly different focus in their work.
Indeed, and it's quite important that the youth makes itself available in co-designing processes. So it's about having the capacity, that means the education, training, information, and means to participate, but also making yourself available, allocating time for participating in fora that are quite constructive in terms of not just capacity building, but also policy design and solution implementation. And this, of course, starts for being part in different networks, but it also means, creating a representative board, let's say, that can really provide the leadership that is needed to represent the youth in co-designing procedures, for example, in water legislation in Europe, or even more broader networks. It doesn't have to be water networks, because water is a system within other systems. So I would urge you to have a look at SDSN Youth. It's a big network, global network, with a hub in each and every country, where issues that are relevant to sustainability, including water, including water, food, energy nexus, are very vividly discussed. Solutions are created and discussed, and we try to sketch the pathways, we try to pave the pathways for the different parts of the society, one of them being youth, for being included in co-design procedures, co-design of policies, co-design of solution implementations. So make yourself available. Organize yourself in a way that you can be represented and make yourself heard, and then include yourself not just in water-related network, although you are interested in water, but in general sustainability transition networks, which include water. And the voice of water after the European Green Deal got a bit less loud, in a bad way, because there was no explicit policy. But if you look at the European Green Deal closely, and this is what Water Europe is trying to do, you can see that water is everywhere. So This would be my point of view and advice.
Susanna, you are raising your hand because you are, no.
Just would like to, thank you. I just would like to add to the three pillars that Elpida mentioned, the knowledge, information, cooperation. And just to stress that cooperation at all levels, we also have to include the local people, population, indigenous people. It's a matter of inclusiveness. And I think our river basin communities are part of that place to do this. I think it's really very interesting. And I would add another pillar, communication. I think communication is really essential at different levels. And it's our part of what we've been talking about with different disciplines, different levels and everything. So I think it's, I would add communication as another important pillar. Thank you.
Let me just ask you experts something that just came in my mind. Are there any specific barriers to the water sector coming from the pandemic? I mean, that form some new issues that we have to have in mind, all of us working on the water sector. Can you say something to emphasize? Because it may not be barriers, new barriers, but are there any in this post-COVID era?
Well, oh, sorry, please go ahead, Josh.
I'll go quickly. I think it's kind of the opposite, if anything, because it's brought to even the public's knowledge about how important water is. During COVID, the amount of water jobs didn't go down. The hiring, it went down a little bit for a little while, but then it went right back to where it was before, because I think there's the recognition of how important water is, and for pandemics, for health, was recognized. So I don't know if it increased barriers. It might have actually lowered them.
Yes, I agree.
Exactly. I mean, one of the the basic frontline defense against the spread of COVID-19 was frequent and proper hand washing. And at the same time, a big proportion of the world, around a quarter of world population, does not yet have access to clean and reliable water. So the need for accelerating the implementation of SDG 6 became even more apparent, and it became obvious that this is even more important, although again most of the water is consumed by the agricultural sector. It became even more important for cities where lots of population is gathered, and this is exactly the thematic priority of our ERC grant. How you make 70% of the population, which is the projection by 2050, 70% of the population of the world having access to clean and reliable water when they live in cities. And this, I think, it has been highlighted during the pandemic.
Thank you. There are some comments on the chat, as I can see. That I think Raphael says that embarking on nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches it is an option or a new trend, let's say, that might give us light.
Definitely. I mean, nature-based solutions together with the renewables, together with the transition to circular economy, together with adaptation projects, adapting against the increased frequency and severity of extreme weather events which we cannot avoid, digitalization are the major solution categories that we need to use and synthesize in optimal mixtures in order to be able to transform towards a better world. Nature-based solutions are important, and that's why it is important to conserve, to invest in conserving our forests, and that's why it was important that the COP declaration that 100 states, including Russia, will invest in conserving and preserving their forests, but also nature-based solutions that have to do with heavy precipitation and sewage management and all that are becoming very important in urban settlements as well, in urban frameworks as well. Definitely nature-based solutions are important, and they are not very expensive either.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the importance of nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approach. I showed some of them too, at least in my presentation. And I think this has a very good appeal, and I would, and I think that we should talk about the nexus, water, energy, food, and ecosystems for the future.
Exactly. WEF and ecosystems. I usually call it water, food, energy, and biodiversity. So it's the ecosystems on which we all depend on.
Okay. Thank you very much. What is, Philip, do you see the Q&A?
Yes, I do. I'm currently reading them.
You can go on if you can read.
Please do.
Yeah, there's one question in here. In the view of what is being discussed, how can youth lead and community-focused projects on the subject matter to be supported, especially in Africa? Josh, please.
I'd like to hear what the other panelists, but Phoebe and Susanna, have to say on this as well. But there are various organizations out there, especially, I mean, this is coming from the question from young professionals. So, but there are various organizations out there that give pilot funding to young professionals for projects at the community level. I sit on the board of one of them. It's called Young Water Solutions, and they give 5,000 euro seed. It's a competition, and they give 5,000 euros in seed funding to community-based water and sanitation solutions in developing countries. But I think there's another one on climate and water that the Global Water Partnership does as well. And there's a few more out there. I'm not remembering them all, but those are two, those are specifically for young professionals wanting to do community-based work. And so, yeah, so there are resources out there for that. Again, it's competition-based, and they're all different in what they're asking for, but those exist. So that's one direction I would look at in wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also EIT has many competitions that are relevant not only in Europe, but also in Africa. Africa is a big priority for Europe. And there are innovation competitions, there are hackathons that are very relevant to the water industry. I mean, I often joke and I say there is one every day almost. And then there are all these projects, the big funded projects, Horizon Europe projects, where you have many case studies and pilot areas, and you can always synergize with the SMEs or the research institutions that are participating as partners and propose the involvement of a youth organization. That is why it is important to organize yourselves. Propose the involvement of a youth section in a local case study, just to show how the youth can better and more efficiently mobilize people in different places. And it's been shown that when you have youth organizations involved, especially in places like Africa, not so much in Asia, but Africa, it works very well. So the youth talks to the youth, and in some cases, the result is much more efficient and quick than when youth is not involved. So there is funding there. What you need to do is to work on your connections with research institutions and SMEs that are involved in these kind of projects. At the beginning, they might not allow you a big part of the budget, but if you prove efficient and you prove willing enough, slowly you integrate with them and they become a continuous and serious source of funding. We have examples like this in our projects. And of course, there are the usual suspects like big companies that at different point in times they announce that they want to have a youth initiative fund, and there are opportunities there as well.
Thank you very much, indeed, because I think these are very useful remarks, and everybody need to have in mind to seek, to search. And I was wondering, because of this high unemployment that now we are facing and all these turbulent times, can water youth be job creators and not job seekers? Is there a possibility? I mean, not a possibility, but how will you advise them to do so? Because I think that they can. I don't think that, because the future is youth. It's not us. Us, including myself, in the middle of youth and the other part of the river, let's say. I feel that we are here to give our wisdom, as you said, but I think that youth is the future. So can they be creators and not seekers in these difficult times?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that was one of the questions you'd originally posed to us, is the entrepreneurialness. And yeah, especially with all the, I'll go back to technology again, and how, us older generation aren't as adept at it and the young generation is, and that all the solutions, the potential solutions that can be developed with technology and the entrepreneurial spirits of young professionals, they can definitely be job creators. as you know, in addition to, it just all depends about what they want to do. But there's a lot of initiative in the younger generation, and so yeah, they'll be there. You see, you know, organizations being started by young professionals and in companies and businesses. So there's definitely that, and I'd say yeah, more so than say us in the older generation.
I mean, I will just add, just emphasize what Joss has said, that 60% of the startups that we incubate and accelerate, and many of them are focused on water, they come from the youth. And I see a major change between when I was at the university and now. Even the undergraduates, even at the undergraduate level, this entrepreneurial spirit, and innovation focus is so vivid nowadays that I truly believe that they have lots to offer, especially at this young age. Why? Not because it is at this young age that will make the breakthrough, but to make the breakthrough, you need, on average, 6 or 7 failures or even more. So by the time you are 35, 40, you are ready. The only difficulty I see is that we've never taught people, young people, how they can organize themselves effectively. Not destructively, but effectively. And this will be important, not just for making their voice heard, but also for securing the conditions that will allow their entrepreneurial investigations and their involvement in the startup ecosystem to really flourish. They need a way to influence the policy framework so that it gives them the opportunities, but also continuous upskilling and reskilling that they need in order to stay on top of the innovation of the innovation ecosystem and really, push themselves to those limits that are needed in order to make the breakthrough.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to
Like
since
to,
it's
sorry.
okay. No, go on, please.
I think just another point I would like to emphasize it for these job creators, the importance of considering the citizen science for the sector. So developing apps and platforms, I think for the ordinary people to really take part in the with some providing data for different sectors within the water resources management. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that there is a question.
I think there's one last question that we can ask, especially since we're coming to the end of this session, which has been very, very interesting. Maybe the one question I get from the last message that was sent to the chat is, can we get such supporters? How can we get such supporters? How can we identify the right supporters for our projects?
Well, you need to investigate very thoroughly the different funding opportunities, and this is a job. And this is how you create jobs. You don't sit and wait for an opportunity to come up. You create the opportunity. And in order to create the opportunity, you really need to know what is there, who is funding what are the competitions that are forthcoming in the next year, And which of these competitions and these different funds are close, are possible funders of what you are working on. So before starting on anything, be sure on two things. First, whatever you are thinking, 99.9% of the time, somebody else has already thought about it. He might not have been efficient enough, able enough, clever enough to implement it. Second, make sure you studied thoroughly what is there, the background, the framework, the ecosystem, the people, the companies, the ideas. Study, study, study. Map the framework, map the stakeholders, map the policies, map the funders. And then when you think you have an idea that can work, see who has worked on it before, while it has failed, and try to overcome that. And if you do that with consistency and seriousness and with a good team, never work alone, one mind is never enough, then and go to as many competitions and events, even as an audience, but also take part, then you will achieve your goal. It needs persistency, consistency, and serious work. This is not an easy thing to do. This is not someone tells you do this and you do it and you succeed. This is your own goal that has to be integrated in all you do and think for a large period of time. And you should know that the disappointments will be much more than the successes. But the way towards achieving it will give you so much pleasure and will stimulate your creativity so much that even if you reach the success, you will want more. You will want to go through the journey again, a different journey, but you know, this journey is what is exciting. And I've seen many people that have started very young and they are now older than me, and they are still in this journey, either helping young or either still, you know, navigating through the pathways of innovation and expanding markets and not just making money, but, you know, having a positive footprint on the lives of people. And having a positive footprint on the lives of people, it's, I would say, and I don't want to be misunderstood, but I would say it's easier in places that are developing and not already developed. You can really contribute a lot in Africa. You can really contribute a lot in parts of Asia, in parts of Latin America. And I think you are very lucky because these days, most of you have easy access to university, and these days, most of the university have innovation and entrepreneurship as one of their priorities. So this is much more helpful than in the old days that we were students.
Thank you very much. I think this whole path that you are describing is very, first of all, inspiring for all the young people to get it, to understand it, and then try to practically do it. I think that we are almost done. I would like to ask Susanna, because Josh had something else very important to do, and he's sorry, but he had to leave urgently. But we thank him very much. Susanna, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you again. I think I delivered my message during the presentation, during these discussions. I really would like to thank you for the opportunity, all the organizing team. And I think it was a very good section. I really had the opportunity also to learn. And I think this is my main message. We need a continuous learning process. Thank you. Have you all a good day.
Thank you very much. Michael, because we are
Thank you very
now
much for
closing this session, say a word, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the session. It was really interesting. And I hope that also the audience got some key messages for the future, because all the speakers were really contributing a lot on the discussion. So thank you again to all of the speakers.
Thank you.